So the recording will be devoid of all the beginning kind of dead air and banter. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday. It's September 25th, 2020. We're ready to flex our muscles and learn something today. And today we're talking about Airtable for real estate brokers. Before I dive right into that, I want to show you something. I want to share something with you that's exciting. Also having to do very specifically with Airtable. Earlier this week, I should really say technically last week, Intuit dropped my article on how to use Airtable for accounting and bookkeeping firms. They dropped a post that just had the video. Then yesterday they sent out in their newsletter a link to this article, which includes the video here as well. And it's a very detailed write-up on how to use Airtable and get it set up for an accounting firm. I just really went through it and created like a little, basically like a textbook for you with all, as you can see, all the screenshots for, for how to set up an Airtable base to, run an accounting practice with it, to, thinking in terms of all the tasks and to-dos. Of course, a lot of you are already using things like ClickUp and Asana and whatever you use. And if you have those tools and they're working for you, great, leave it, use that. But the idea here is it's completely customizable because Airtable is not, it's not a project management application. It's a database building piece of software where you don't need to know any code. It just makes it easy for you to create different tables, right, and lists, and then link things back and forth to one another so that you can then easily kind of pivot around data and report on information like who's doing what, when it's supposed to be done, what hasn't been done that was supposed to have been done by now. And mainly what I like about the way it works when you build something like this in Airtable is you're able to get a very clear view across all of your projects in one place of who's doing what and for which projects and so on. A lot of these other apps, and I don't get me wrong, I love ClickUp. My whole life is practically in ClickUp at this point. But even ClickUp, I don't feel has a great way of getting that bird's eye view of everything. I still feel like I really need to get a clear picture. I need to go into each individual space or project, however I have that organized, to get a picture of who's doing what. I go through that kind of reminders feed and I feel overwhelmed. There's just too much and I don't know really which thing to look at first. So Airtable, will give you a very clear picture of that. And so today I want to talk about how we're setting it up for real estate brokers because it just lends itself beautifully to this kind of thing. And I thought I had my Airtable base for this open, but now I can't find it. So let's get it open. And let's bring it up on my screen. And what I did when I was kind of going through this was I sort of built it a little. I got the basic framework built out so that we didn't have to start completely from scratch today. And then we're going to work on it. We're going to build it out a little bit more than what I've got. So the basic listing table is, what I started with. And if any of you kind of follow the real estate world at all, you'll recognize where I got some of this from. I'm a fan of the show $1 Million Listing. I like to watch the show, and so I picked on those guys and just pulled in information from their actual listings just to fill it up with data so you could get a sense of how this works. So, one of the things I always mention when I'm showing people how to build a base in Airtable is that the first column should be something that's going to be unique, that's really never going to be repeated in that list. So the street address of these is perfect because that theoretically should never, you're not going to have two of those unless you sell the same property twice. But if that happens, no problem. So I thought this was the perfect thing to use for the street address as the first column, right? It's the unique identifier. So that's where we start. And then, just putting the city in its own thing. What I might even do, and one of the cool things about Airtable is it's pretty smart like this. As I started filling this in, you can see I've created just a generic text type column. I can actually change this to a single select column, and it will populate the existing information that's in there as choices, right? So doing that, you can instantly see how it just converts beautifully to something like that, so that as I add more records, I can either choose from an existing city or I can add new choices in, based on what I need to add in as I go. then I grabbed photos from the web. Something interesting I learned in putting this together. A lot of times the realtors' websites, I think they purposely put kind of low-res images because they don't want people doing exactly what I did here, which is grabbing the images off the web and sort of repurposing them elsewhere. But by dropping the property address and then the words photos into a Google search, I was able to find other websites that had them and had good high-res images. And I'm going to show you in a minute. Of course, I can click in here and get a good look at these. And if you want to, of course, I'm going to share the link to this base with everyone after today. I mean, some of these homes are amazing. If you have a cool 78 million to spare, you can have, this estate that Josh Altman has listed for $78 million.
Seth, can we pause for a second and make sure we talk about what level of Airtable you're on, and if you have one of the higher subscription levels, can you talk to, or as you go through, make sure you mention what's not available?
Yeah, of course. I mean, most of it's available in the free version. What you'll run into are certain limits. So, and some of this you probably won't even care about, like the color palette. That's limited in the free version, right? I don't think you're going to upgrade to the paid version for that. The other limitations are with respect to how much you have in file size that you can add to your account in Airtable, right? They're going to limit you to, as you're adding attachments like these photos, you're going to be limited to how much of that you can add in. And then the other limitations are around how many databases you can have, how many rows you can have, in a database. So as always, I always recommend, just checking out the pricing. If you Google Airtable pricing, you'll find the page right there. And so you can see clearly here, what the differences are, right? Records per base. In the free, I'm limited to 1,200 records per base. On this plan, which is plus, it's 5,000. I'm on the pro plan, which is $20 per month. And as you can see, I have, I'm not going to hit these limits anytime soon, right? At this plan. That's why I chose it. That's why I went even, one beyond the first level, because I just knew I didn't want to have to worry about these limitations. Automations are brand new in Airtable, but so here you can even see they show you that in the pricing. So that's where some of the limitations are. The advanced stuff, in the two lower tiers, you don't have access to the automations at all. It doesn't look like, or not to the automations, but to the apps rather, which they used to call blocks. They just renamed that to apps. I'm going to show you an example of some blocks in this one in a minute. And then, of course, different levels of support. So always, when you're looking at an app for the first time, just Google the app name and the word pricing, and you'll always get some kind of comparative table like that kind of shows you what the different plans are. And what I always tell people is take the free plan. And then as soon as you hit some kind of friction where to do something that you want to do, you have to upgrade, wait till you reach that moment. And when you reach that moment, make a decision if it's something that's worth upgrading for or not, or if you'd rather just live without it. Yesterday I actually worked with a guy who's got a bookkeeping practice, and he's got a few clients, and one of them has a very complex inventory situation. And I've worked with him for a couple of hours now, one-on-one, helping him build out his Airtable base that he's now using to track inventory. Airtable is beautiful for that. And there were some limitations we ran into where I showed him, because he's on the free plan, or no, he's on the next plan up, that he didn't have access to certain features. And so I basically told him point blank, look, you can upgrade and you can do this, or we can come up with some workarounds. That's going to be the choice at that point. And, he kind of just said, let me think about it. And so he didn't immediately want to upgrade, in other words, just to get that extra functionality. And that's the decision you'll want to make. And over here, for what I'm going to show you today, for the most part, I don't think you'll need, anything more than the free version, most likely, other than maybe some bells and whistles, like I said, in terms of the color palettes. So, as I go through this, again, I start with the street address. We've got the city, we've got the photos, a listing page. I saw some examples where some people even included a column with the floor plans here. That would just be another, this is an attachment column type, right? that I just named photos, you would do another attachment for the floor plans, right? Here I include the listing page because like I said, I grabbed this data from those guys' websites. So this way I can link right back to the original listing. Of course, the listing price. And then the property description. Airtable recently sort of upgraded these long text fields to where you can actually format them. So I can do formatting. I can make it bold, italic, strike through. I can even put a little code in here, and I can add in hyperlinks. So I can link up text if I wanted to just take a chunk of that text and link it somewhere. Very easy to do that now. And over here, you've got your basic H1, H2, H3, bullet points, check boxes, that kind of thing. So you can do, they've turned this into, you have to turn the feature on when you create the column. Right here where it says enable rich text formatting. So that, and for something like this where you're going to do property descriptions, you're definitely going to want to do that. You're definitely going to want to be able to do that rich text formatting. Because if you're the realtor and you want to show all your listings like this, the nice thing about this is you can take any view in Airtable. On the left, you'll see my views. I've got a grid view, and we're going to look at the gallery view in a couple minutes. But I can take any of these views, and when I go to share it, one of my choices is that I can embed it. I can get the embed code, and I can copy and paste this embed code right onto the back end of a page on my website. So I can create a really cool interface for users of my website to be able to access all the listings that I have available right now. Created a column for the type of home, right? I noticed just looking at the way most realtors presented their listings on their website, they almost always show the year it was built. Okay, the MLS listing number, the date available, of course, number of bedrooms, number of baths, right? So that huge estate that I showed you the photo of has 8 bedrooms and 21 bathrooms. You can open up your own little mini hotel with a place like that. 41,000 square feet. There's no acreage because the whole thing is the estate. There's no like extra land around the home. I was wondering about that. And then I was looking at the photos and I realized, okay, so the whole thing, the whole 41,000 square feet is taken up by the home, right? The amenities, again, another rich text field. And here you'll see how I did use the bullet points, to just list the amenities that they listed about each property. These guys, Josh Altman, smart, he does a video tour on every single property. And you can tell it's been done with like drone footage and really well done, and set to nice music. So these guys have really done, a tremendous job. And then this column refers to where we want to start using this almost as a bit of a CRM. So if we know that a buyer is close to buying, if it's shortlisted, we can check this off, and then I can carve out a view that will filter this whole table for only those things that I've shortlisted, meaning I'm very close to, closing the deal with these guys. And we're going to get into that a little more. We're going to build out this lead section in a little bit. And over here, you can see the linked fields for listing broker and agent. I don't have any agents in here. I just have brokers for now. And so let me go over to the brokers table that I started to build. And that's where, and I always say this, whenever you run into something that's going to be repeated, like, for each property, I'm going to have the same broker perhaps many times over. I might even have multiple brokers on a property, and you'll see examples of that here. So anytime I see something that's going to get repeated a lot, I want to create a separate table for it most likely, right? So I created a table for the brokers, okay? And here you can see I have Joshua Altman, his brother Matthew. This guy Andreas is listed together with Josh on one of the listings. And then I have Josh Flagg, who's also from $1 Million Listing, and Bobby Boyd, who apparently works with Josh Flagg. They both work at Rodeo Realty, right? So this is how I built this out, and you can see, and again, this is not like private information. I pulled this all off of their websites. So it has their Department of Real Estate number, their mobile phones in case you should want to purchase one of these homes, the company they work with. The Altmans work at Douglas Elliman Real Estate, and again, Josh and Bobby are at Rodeo Realty. And then here are the cross links to the listings that I've associated with their names, right? Agents is going to work the same way, and then the agent I'm probably going to tie back to a broker, because as I build out my list of agents, so if I have, let's say Greg is getting hired at the Douglas Elliman Realty, and if he's coming in as an agent, then what I'll want to do, let me just delete some of these extra fields that I don't need here right now. Yep, I'll delete that. And then we'll add it back in when I need it. So over here, what I want to do is create a link to another record to brokers, right? Because I want to be able to associate that Greg is an agent working underneath a particular broker, right? So we're going to disable this because I don't think there'd be a case where he is working under more than one broker. So once I set up that column, here it just assumes if I'm creating a link like that, that I might want to look up other information from that same table. But I'm going to say no, I'm going to skip that. And now I can just associate that Greg is working under Josh Altman, right? And of course, I would do the same thing with the agents as I've done with the brokers and just kind of build it out with their contact information. And then I'll go back to what I did was I actually broke this one. So I'll fix that. Link to another record and to agents. And here I'm going to allow multiple records because I could easily have it happens a lot actually, where you have, two agents, just like you can have two brokers kind of sharing a listing. They're both going to work on it and they're both going to share the commissions, whatever that winds up looking like, right? And then here we'll have leads. So as we start getting people interested in these listings, I want to track their contact information. That's where this is going to become a bit of a CRM. More than a bit, whereas as leads come in, I'm going to have all their contact information here, right? So let's just say that Matthew is interested in buying, the $78 million home there, right? So link to another record.
He'd slum like that.
What?
I don't think he'd slum like that.
No, probably not. So we're going to create a link to listings. Definitely want to allow multiple because as I have leads come into my realty, there might be several listings I'm going to show them that they're interested in, right? So I'm going to allow linking to multiple records. I'll skip the lookup for now. And over here, notice when I click how nice this lays out, right? So I can easily see the records that are coming from the listings table. And I can see, okay, yeah, Matthew's interested in this one. And let's say he's also considering, slumming it a little bit. And instead of Bel Air, he's going to look at Beverly Hills, right? And then again, I have a notes column. I can enable the rich text formatting so I can make notes and explain, what Matthew's interested and why, right? And then again, if Matthew is very close to buying the 10697 Soma Way, then out here, I can shortlist it. And I can see, if I go out far enough, it's probably hidden. Originally, they hide these fields when you create these links. So I want to show the leads field, okay? And now if I go all the way out to the right, I can see, okay, Matthew's interested in this, but also maybe I have another lead, right? Maybe Jennifer Castro is going to move back from Mexico and she wants to buy her estate, right? So maybe she's going to try and outbid Matthew on the Bel Air property. Okay, so now when I go back to listings and I go to Soma Way, I can see that there's two people. And mind you, from here, I can click on either one of them and I can access their record from here. It's showing me, I'm in the listings tab, but this is linked in from the leads tab. And it's showing me the listing. This is just called field 5. I can rename this here, listings interested in, I can call it. I don't know if that's going to rename anything else over here. I want to make sure it doesn't. You always have to check these things. You have to sort of check the behavior, right? But no, it doesn't. So now if I go back into Jennifer's record, and because you want these things to make sense, especially when you're looking at it like this from sort of a limited window, so to speak, you want to make sure the context is clear. Like, why is this showing up here? Because this is one of the listings that she's interested in. And right from here, I can say, you know what? She's also going to consider, she doesn't want Beverly Hills, but maybe she also wants Brentwood. So we'll add that one. And now you can see when it's got multiple. And, and it'll link her. You can see in the background here, she got linked down below on that property, right? So this is where you're starting to see the power of the database and how this can be used to really effectively manage, a database like this of all the listings that I have available as a realtor, and keeping track of, who's interested in what and when. And of course, this I'm going to build out with all their contact information. I definitely want their cell phone number. I want to make sure I've got their mobile number, because, this is 2020. I want to be able to send them a text and say, hey, Matthew, I just want to follow up with him and see if he wants to finally close on one of these properties, right? So let's go back to listings for a minute. It's really easy, hopefully, as you can see, to build this stuff out, right? Very, very easy to do. You can add a column. If I go all the way to the right, whereas you've seen already, I can right-click any existing column and insert to the left or the right of it. And then once I do, you can see all the different field types that you can choose from based on different kinds of information that you might want to track, right? The roll-up is a cool little function that I used yesterday when I was working on that inventory project with that guy, because we were able to look into one particular table that had multiple records of sort of inventory transactions and roll it up to come up with here's the total, for that particular, kind of inventory type item. So again, we're building a database that's going to allow us to keep track very efficiently of what's going on. So now I want to show you the gallery view. So we're back on the listings table. And to create the gallery view, all you have to do, if you have this, what you're seeing here where I have the views sort of showing like that, it's in beta. So not everybody has this yet. What you may have instead of this is a little drop down arrow next to here where it says grid view, which when you click on it will show you the same kind of list, right? And so if you do have this, all you have to do is click here on gallery view while you're in this grid view, right? And we can rename this. Let's just call this all listings. Okay. And so you see how easy that is to rename. And if I click on gallery, you get this really nice layout, right? And it's basically in any of these records, and I'll show you in a minute, the first image that appears inside is going to be the sort of tiles cover image. And you can change that. You can reorder them very easily. But you see how nice this looks. And then from the gallery view, you'll have this customized cards option. So here's where you can choose what's showing. So I went in there and picked, I want to see the city, I want to see the listing price, and why not include the property description there? And just like I showed you with the, all listings view earlier, I can share this view and I can get the embed code to embed it on my website. And some of you may recognize that I use something like this on the events page on my website so that you can browse the upcoming webinars that I'm doing. And you can see if I move my mouse over this, and as I scroll to the right with my mouse, it toggles the different images that I have in here. So right from here, without even having to click through, you can start seeing the images. Okay, and here's some of the other listings. And also I've got the listing broker included there, right? Or brokers. And from here, if I click on one of these cards, it pops out the record so I can get into the details. And here's where all the images are. And you can, at the bottom right of any image, you'll see this little grading kind of thing appear. And that's where if I want to, I can reorder them. And whatever appears at the top left is going to be that main image that shows up on the card itself when you're in that gallery view. And these were easy. I just kind of grabbed these off the web. And then when you want to add an attachment, if I go back to the all listings, I could have done it from there too. But if I want to add an attachment to any of these, I can just, at this point, just click here to expand. And you can click here and browse to the files, and then you can just drag and drop them from like a Windows Explorer folder. And then it'll give you a choice to just upload. So I was able to upload when I was doing this. In this case, I was able to just quickly upload all 4 of these images at once. So it's very, very easy to manage this stuff. All right, any questions so far? I haven't been looking on Facebook at all.
Larry mentions that it's an easy sell to real estate firms.
Yeah, I think so. Right, I think it's just a really great way to manage the data. It's very, very easy to customize and manage whatever's here, right? And then, so let's look at how we can carve this up for things that we've shortlisted. So let's say we're shortlisting these first 2. So I'm going to check these off. And by the way, you can also expand any of these records when you're all the way on the left here, since it kind of goes far to the right. If I hover my mouse over any record, this little two-pronged arrow appears. And when I click on that, it expands the record. And as I scroll down, I can access all the same fields, of course, including the shortlisted checkbox, and I can check or uncheck that. So here's what we're going to do. I want to create a view here that's looking only at the stuff that's been shortlisted. So I'm going to click my ellipsis here, and I'm going to choose Duplicate View. Okay, it makes a carbon copy, and it takes me right into the edit mode so I can rename it. So I'll call this Shortlisted. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this. So add a filter where, and you can use the search. So I can start typing to find that field really quick and where it's checked off, right? So it's very straightforward. I can do something similar with the gallery view. So I can take this existing gallery view, duplicate it, and I'll call this gallery-shortlisted filter where shortlisted is checked, right? And this could be my way of maybe even encouraging more people to step up and submit bids, because I could say, hey, these are close to being sold. You know, I think legally you're not allowed to disclose like what your actual offers are. You can't like try and generate more competition by telling people that, you know, people are offering, you know, 100 million for this one. That could have changed, but I remember from years ago when I bought my house, I remember learning that the broker agent can't tell you how much other people have bid on the property. So now let's build something. Let's build a commission table here, right? At least I'll show you how you can get started doing that. So for the commissions, the first thing I would want to, I'm going to ignore the first column for a minute. We'll come back to that, okay? And I'm going to just hide these others for now. So they're out of the way. And now I want to click this. And the first thing I want to do is bring in the property that's sold, right? If I'm calculating commissions, it means the property has sold. I want to link to that from the listings. And in this case, I don't want to allow linking to multiple records. Each property's commission is going to be calculated on its own. So I'll hit save, and we'll skip the lookup for now. Okay. So property sold would be, let's say, this guy. Now we're going to do some lookups, right? So I could have done it there, but I like to just kind of think this through sequentially and logically, right? So I want the original listing price, because remember, that may not be what it sold for. You know, it might have sold for more, it might have sold for less. So we're going to do this as a lookup. In order for the lookup to work, we have to have something that's linked to another table, right? Because once I choose lookup, it's going to ask me. In this case, there's only one column existing that's linked to another table, so there's only one thing to choose from. All right, property sold. So I'm looking in property sold, and then what do I want to look up? I want to look up that listing price and save. And then once I've got that in there, I'm going to go back in, format, and I want currency and save. All right. Here, I'm going to create a field called sold for as a currency type, where I'm simply going to key in what it actually sold for, right? So let's say this one sold for 100 million. Okay. Next, I want broker's commission rate. Okay, this is going to be a percentage. All right. I don't think we'll have more than 2 decimal places, but just for posterity, let's set it up that way. And let's say he's at 4%. And now we're going to create a simple calculated field that figures out what his commission is on this. Oh, the other thing we should look up is the listing broker, right? So property sold. Here I'm going to right click, insert left, another lookup. Brokers, possibly more than one, okay? So we're looking it up in, not in property sold, Oh yeah, it is based on property sold. Choose a field. It's going to be, I think, near the end here. Listing broker. There you are. So I can, again, you just grab the data from wherever you need to get it from. So now I can see who made this commission. Let's insert to the right. Commission earned in dollars. Okay. This is going to be a formula, actually. And this is a very simple formula, right? So I can start typing in the search sold for, and it'll bring up the list of fields that match my search there. Sold for times the broker's commission rate. Okay. And now that we've got the formula done, so it has a result in there, I can double click and set the formatting to currency. You won't be able to do this until Airtable knows what kind of data it's got there. So when you're doing a formula like this, first you have to build the formula and save it, and then you have to go back in and it'll let you establish the formatting. And then of course what I didn't include here that we definitely want, and maybe that's where what we can use this for, but I still don't love using this yet. So hold on, I'm going to come back to this. But over here, let's insert left. Date closed. We definitely want to know what the date was, right? And this is going to be a date type column. So let's say he sold this today. Because then what we can do from here is we can carve it up. So I can filter this and say, just show me September's closing so I can see what Josh's commissions are for the month of September. Right, very easily, and I can carve that out. I can make a view of that and say, just, I can filter this for where the broker contains Joshua. This one you have to be a little bit exact here. Okay, so where the broker contains Joshua Altman, and where the date I can do, where is it, is within, I don't want to do that. So this is a little clunky. I think they could do better with this, but I'll show you how I do this. If I want to just look at September's, right? You have to put two conditions. So we'll say is on or after September 1st and date closed is on or before September 30th. So that would show just this. And then, of course, what I would do at that point, because I don't want to have to recreate all these settings with all these filters, is I would duplicate this view. And I would call this Josh Altman September 2020 or something like that. And I can use this to run my commission statements every month, right? The only thing that this doesn't account for is if we sell a listing where there's multiple brokers, then I'd have to build something out to give you that detail, because essentially we'd have to figure out what their split is on this, $4 million. So maybe it's 50-50, it may not be. So we want to provide the infrastructure where we could say what the percent split is for each of them, and then of course the calculation is going to be the same from there. So we'll maybe have two more columns with the percentage for the split. I don't know if it's very likely that there would ever be more than two people in on a deal, so I'm thinking we would just need probably two more columns to show, or four more, one for each broker split's percent and one for their corresponding dollar amount that they're going to get. All right, I'm looking for the chat here to see if there's anything. Melissa had to leave. Larry says, looks like an easy sell to real estate firms. Alexa says, I was on Facebook at first, but it seemed different, and I could not find a way to comment there. That's interesting. All right, this is new for me, the way I'm doing it live on Facebook today, so I'll have to play with that some more. There's supposed to be a way I'm able to get into like a back end on the Facebook side which I'm not doing. I'm running this straight out of Zoom. So anyway, it looks like in the Facebook group, it looks like you could comment. And you could, there's a comment option right at the bottom of the live feed on Facebook here, in case anybody's still kind of watching on Facebook. Right down here below the live feed, you can click here to comment. So there it is there. All right then. So let's add one more closing here so we can kind of see how this works. And I like how you can kind of break it down this way. So let's say this closing is going to be in October, right? Let's say October 2nd. So we'll see how, of course, it doesn't show up in the Josh Altman view. All right, link to a record from listings. So we'll grab another one of Josh's listings. We'll do the Brentwood one. Oh, the other thing I didn't do is I should add in a column to indicate which of the leads actually bought it, right? So the listing price was 27, almost 28 million. What did it sell for? Let's say this one, let's say, because we're slumming it in Brentwood instead of Bel Air, maybe it sold for a little less. Let's just say it was 27 million. Okay, and let's say the commission rate on this was also 4%, right? And it instantly, it'll recalculate. Sometimes it takes a second, but there's the commission earned. Okay, and I still haven't dealt with the first column yet. I'm going to show you what I'll do there. Now it kind of shows it because it's active, but if I click away, notice it disappears because it wasn't in September, right? If I go back to the grid view, I have to remove those filters because this is where I originally created those. So here I want to see everything, right? And let's get rid of these two that were blank. And now I can see that. And let's add in the column, insert left. We'll call this sold to, okay? Link to another record, leads, there can only be one. Okay, skip. And this one will say Jennifer won out, right? And so for this one, we'll say this Matthew took this one since Jennifer outbid him on the bigger estate. All right, and again, once this is linked here, if I wanted to here, I could pull in all their other information, but I probably wouldn't care to because I can, I can just click on this if I need to get in her information. Because like I said earlier, normally what I'd include here is all her contact information and stuff like that, right? And then the other thing we can do with these kind of views is I can say, let's group this by broker or brokers. And what it does is, because there's one listing that was sold with Joshua Altman as the only broker and another one with him and Andreas as sort of co-listers, it groups them accordingly when you group it. In other words, it's not going to duplicate this under Josh. It's going to show them as two separate groups, one with just Josh and one with the combination of Josh and Andreas. So in the grouping, it will kind of build it out that way. So going back, because now I see Alexa's asking about it in the chat because I still haven't addressed the first column yet. So let's kill off this grouping. And I reserve the first column for something that's truly going to be unique, as I've mentioned. So a lot of times, as you can see, I don't do anything with this until I've really got it built out and I can clearly see what the information is that I'm showing here. And so now what I'll do is I'm going to double click this and I can do one of two things. But remember, I may want to reference this from some other table. So in this case, I probably want it to be something where I can easily see based on what shows up, what the information is that's related to it. Because the other thing I can do, and I've done this before, is just set this up as like an auto number, right? So it'll just be like it's creating a record number, right? 1, 2, 3, and so on. Or I can call this listing details, let's just say. And we'll do this as a formula. And just like we have in Excel, we can use concatenate. Okay, and then notice there's the flashing cursor right in between the parentheses there. If I click in there, then it brings up the formula builder, right? So let's say what I would want to do is bring in sold to, comma, quote, dash, quote, comma. So it's just like a concatenate formula in Excel. So that's going to give me the name of the person it sold to. And then maybe I'll do sold for as the other part. Now it doesn't format the numbers. It doesn't make that look pretty. So you can do this however you want, but this way, or maybe what I'll do, instead of sold for, I'll do the property, right? Property sold, and I got the extra brackets in there, so I need to fix that. And click save. So that makes a lot of sense, because then this, if I'm referencing this from one of the other tables for any reason, I can see, you know, this is Jennifer Castro, 10697 Soma Way, right? So going back into the leads table, for example, it shows here from the commissions table that this is what she actually bought, right? This shows what she was interested in. There were 2 listings she was interested in. That's what she actually bought. Now, by the way, if I click here on hide fields, I can easily reorder these that way. I can click and drag the columns and drag them right and left, but this is a much easier way to do it in a lot of cases. So this way I can bring these together, because now I can see this is what they were interested in and this is what they were bought. And so I'll rename the column here. Purchased, I think that sounds better. So now we have the first column addressed in the commissions table. Any questions? Everybody's quiet.
Alexa asks, could we create a column that says days on market and it's a calculated field?
Yeah, so what I had done in the listings table to address that was I put the listing date in, right? So this way, or date available, actually, which is kind of, so you can say days on market would be based on the difference between today and whatever the date available was. These, for some reason, I couldn't find it on the listing information. So to do that, we would need to do a formula, right? So let's add in to the left, days on market, formula, all right, equals today, oops, open and close parentheses, minus date available. And it doesn't like that. So I have to play with that to see why. We may need to convert this into some kind of a decimal for days. There is a days, a parsing thing. Let's try that. Date time parse, I think, is what we need. I'm not that familiar with this, but let's try. Date available. Let's see if that works. No, I'd have to play with this, but that's essentially what we need to do. The beginning of the formula is definitely today. That'll use today's date, and then we need to get the difference between that and the date available. And so it's something I have to play with. Honestly, I haven't obviously done it yet. So listing date to date sold would work once we have a date sold, but what a lot of the listings show is how many days it's been on the market before it's been sold. That sometimes gives people an indication like, hey, if it's been on the market for a long time, maybe they'll take a lower offer, you know. So we would definitely want to be able to see before we have a sold date, you know, how many days it's been on the market. So it would definitely be, I have to play with how to get this formula to work properly. And by the way, there's great help files available for this. That's how I've learned a lot. I'm going to delete this field for now. So you can probably Google like Airtable date formulas. There it is. It even comes up. and do some research on here. Right, formulas and date fields, Airtable support. So there's a lot of documentation on this stuff. Airtable has grown to be a very, very well-funded company. So it's going to be easy to get information on how to do whatever it is you're trying to do with this. All right, just a few other kind of bells and whistles before I wrap up for the day is if I want to, I can group this by any field. I can group it by city, right? And then if I wanted to within that, let's say I pick another field to group by, and let's say I do the broker, right? And it may be more useful to do it the reverse. So I can click and drag this. So I'm grouping it first by the listing broker and then by city. So, and this can be really useful. I can collapse this to get a little better picture, right? But this way I can see each broker, and then within that by city, what listings they have. This is especially useful if somebody is asking me, you know, for information about listings in a particular city. And then of course I can filter the list, right? So if I know that somebody's looking for properties and they only want to live in Bel Air, let's say they're really snobby. I kid. Actually, I don't. So I can easily filter this for where the city, and when you're using a filter on a preset like a single select like this is, I can even, if there's multiple cities, I can do is any of, and then I can selectively choose. Maybe they'll take Bel Air or Beverly Hills or Malibu, right? Or Brentwood. They don't want Los Angeles, let's say. Pacific Palisades is also like a pretty high-end area. So they only want the real high-end stuff. So I create that. And when I create a view like this and I'm in the all listings table, again, what I'll do is just duplicate the view, rename it, and then I'll go back to my all listings and remove the filters, right? So I can easily take a view like this that's filtered by city, and then I can also group it by city, you know, just so it's really clear. And I can even do some color coding things. Because we have the listing date, I can also get a calendar view, right? So it's going to default to being based on date available. I'll click done, right? So it shows this property was available yesterday. And then here I can choose colors. And so I can select colors based on the city because that's already got kind of a color coding scheme to it, right? So now I'll know kind of the cities all based on this, you know, color coding. If I back up on my calendar, I'll find there's when Laurel Way became available, right? Back in May is when these guys. So, you know, these kinds of things can be handy. And here's two it shows me that don't have dates. And I can click on these and get right into the records. So this is a good way to sort of manage things too, is what listings do I have here where I don't have a date available indicated yet, so I can quickly get that filled in and say, oh, you know what, Malibu is going to be available, you know, next week, right? So I can say September 30th, boom. Now that gets populated on the calendar. And just like any calendar you're using these days, it has some of the common options, like you have a button there to click to get right to today. And there's Malibu, Jeffersonia Way. Maybe that's also going on the market as of like next week. Where's my date there? Right, so boom, it's like a workflow. I can clean it up and make sure that everything's got a date. And back to all listings, and I can pull out my grouping and filters, right? So again, once you've got some data in here, it's really cool because it's really easy to build out and get the information that you know, that you want to get. So Larry's asking, can I briefly elaborate how Airtable shines for inventory? I actually did a couple of Zooms a while back based on that. So I'll send you the links. This one, I want to make sure we're kind of focused specifically on Airtable for real estate brokers, because I know I'm going to be sending this out to a lot of my real estate broker friends. So I want to stay focused on the topic. But Larry, follow up with me outside of this, and I can definitely send you some links. And I'm based on the work I just did yesterday with this one client, I'm going to do an updated video because we came up with some pretty slick stuff that we did that I want to show people. And this guy was funny. He was so excited because we also used the brand new automations feature, which was really cool, where we had, as he creates a lot in one table, I used an automation to automatically add that record into another table, which was the table where we're actually tracking how much inventory was on hand. So it would take his new inventory lot, move it over automatically into that table, where it would then, that was the original quantity on hand, and then we would be able to deduct from those lots as they enter, shipments for inventory that got shipped out. So I'll be doing a video on that kind of stuff coming up soon. Anyway, anybody have any other questions about Airtable for real estate brokers? We're almost at the end of our hour. If not, I will wrap it up. I will get the recording up, and I'll have everything set up for you by sometime tomorrow.
Thank you, Seth.
All right. Thank you all. Have an absolutely fantastic Friday. And I look forward to getting people's feedback once I get this up live on the web. And I will definitely include a link to this on my weekly email that goes out every Sunday at 1 a.m. Pacific time. All right, everybody, have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.